AP Biology, Chapter 35, Plant Anatomy and Function, Part 3. Remember that dicots and monocots are types of angiosperms, or flowering plants, and they have different arrangements of vascular bundles, or tubes within their stem. Here we have the dicot. If you take a look here, the vascular tubes are arranged in bundles in a ring. Take a look here. We got 1, 2, 3, all these vascular bundles arranged in a ring in dicots, which have lignin in trees and shrubs to make them woody. Remember, on the vascular bundle here, we have xylem and phloem, and the phloem is toward the outside of the vascular bundle, and the xylem is toward the inside. So we got phloem, xylem, phloem, xylem, phloem, xylem. For monocots, the vascular bundles, or xylem and phloem, are randomly arranged. So you can see they're just kind of spread out throughout the middle. And that's another difference between dicots and monocots that you should know. The root structure is a little bit different in a dicot. In a root structure, instead of rings, we have this kind of cross-shaped kind of a thing for xylem and phloem. So it's a little bit different in the root versus the stem for dicots. Vascular bundles in a ring versus in the stem of a dicot, it makes like a little cross. For a monocot, the xylem and phloem is arranged in a ring in the stem, or the root rather. So in the root of the monocot, we have the vascular bundles in a ring, but in the stem of a monocot, they're randomly arranged, as we can see here. Monocot, vascular bundles random. In the root, however, it's in a ring. So remember, it's the dicot that has a ring of vascular bundles in the stem, monocot, the ring in the root. All right, plant growth. Plants do not have to stop growing at any given time, and we have two types of plants as far as growth. Annuals will complete their life cycle in 1 year. They germinate or sprout, then they flower, they produce seeds, and then they die. So things like tulips and other small plants, especially non-woody plants, are annuals, and they complete their life cycle in 1 year. Perennials live many years, and trees are an example of a perennial. And you can kind of guess, bigger plants are probably more likely to be perennials, smaller plants more likely to be annuals, because you really can't grow that much in 1 year. Trees don't have to die of old age. They only die from disease and trauma. I guess if you were able to put a bubble around the tree and let no fungus or bacteria get into it at all, it could live hypothetically forever. All right, Meristem. Let's write all this down. We need all this down in our notes. And I want you to add to this. Meristem, think in parentheses as a mnemonic trick, cells that are merrily dividing away. So whenever you hear meristem, think cells that are dividing or undergoing mitosis. They're perpetually embryonic tissue. They're always long telomeres, and they're always dividing. These are the only places of a plant where there's lots and lots of cell division or mitosis. We have the apical, remember apical are the tips, and we have apical meristems. So we're growing up and down from the apical meristems, and you have to know that, and this is called primary growth, growth in length. Also the root has meristem as well, and again, that's growing down. See the little blue here representing the apical meristems, tips over here, apical meristems, and this is primary growth, up and down. Lateral means sides. If you're into football, lateral means on the sides. And then lateral meristem is growth sideways, which is called secondary growth. Not all plants do a lot of sideways growth. Of course, trees do a lot of it, but things like tulips and other plants, like grass on the ground, doesn't grow much sideways. So both are areas where we have rapidly dividing cells. Primary growth, apical meristems. Lateral growth, secondary growth, lateral meristems. All right, here we have apical meristems, rapidly dividing cells here and here. This root cap is dead. It just helps it push through the ground. Here again, we have the apical meristem of the root. That's important. All the other cells that are not dividing, they're just getting longer. So this is called the zone of elongation. You could write that down if you want, but make sure you absolutely know where the apical meristems are on a plant. That's the important part. Here we have some more shoot growth. We have the apical meristems here at the tip. We also have the axillary buds here with embryonic tissue that will grow as well. Axillary means sideways or on the side. All right, woody plants grow year to year, and they have different systems of making rings that herbaceous plants that die every year don't have. So you should write that down. Herbaceous, non-woody plants, and you could write an example like tulips. And then woody plants, of course, are things like trees and shrubs. Remember that stuff that makes them woody is called lignin. All right, so we're going to focus on woody plants here. There's some differences that you should be familiar with. Now, as far as growing up and down, it's apical meristems growing from the tips. However, they also have something else. This is called vascular cambium. As the name implies, vascular means tubes, and cambium refers to just that area of the plant that's going to be doing the tube making. So vascular is where the two tubes are being made, and that's the xylem and phloem. Now this looks really complicated, so we're going to simplify it a little bit, but take a look right there. We got our vascular cambium, and the vascular cambium is going to make xylem and phloem. Every year, it makes a new ring of xylem. So we can see here, one ring of xylem, another ring of xylem, and it keeps on making rings of xylem every year. And when we count tree rings, it's actually the rings of xylem that are being made every year that we're counting up. All right, let's write this down. Especially the vascular cambium. This is going to result in secondary growth, which is sideways growth, and herbaceous plants don't do as much of this. And vascular cambium makes xylem and phloem, which are the rings around the tree. Let's go and do a quick sketch. What I'd like you to do is sketch this little tree ring out, and this here is xylem. This is all phloem, and the vascular cambium is right here in between. Ooh, a better picture. So we have our vascular cambium right there. We have our phloem, which is really thin, and these are the sugar-making tubes, but the xylem, very thick, made of sclerenchyma, whole new ring every year, made from the vascular cambium. You should know that the phloem is produced on the outside, the xylem is produced on the inside, and that's why you'd want to draw a quick picture. Cork cambium, by the way, is just a protective layer, and that's how you make actual corks for like wine and stuff from. It's actually tree bark, a type of tree bark. Ooh, another good picture. So we have our vascular cambium, our xylem, 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. This tree is 3 years old. And then we have our phloem over here, which are really small rings. And here again, we have most of our tree is xylem, dead tubes for conducting of water from the roots. Here's our sugar conducting tubes, the phloem, and then the green represents the vascular cambium that creates both. Now, beavers sometimes chew away around the entire tree, and when they do, they cut through the vascular cambium as well as the phloem. And if they do that around the entire tree, when the plant is transporting sugars down to the roots, it stops and just leaks out. It's kind of like cutting veins on a person. So it kills the tree. If you were to cut about 1 inch into the tree, about 2 inches in the tree maybe, all the way around, you'd cut through the phloem, and that would be called tree girdling, which kills the tree. So if you remember, the cells here are not dividing. They're only dividing from the top. So you're going to be adding more rings to the tree every year, so these marks will become deeper and deeper and deeper. However, they're not going to move up the tree, okay? It's only the tips that are growing. So even in 50 years, these words will be in the same place. They just will be more deeply embedded. And you should know that. You know, if you pound a nail into a tree, the rings will cover the nail, but the nail doesn't move up the tree as it grows because it's growing from the top, not from the middle. And you guys remember this from first quarter, I believe, ecology. This is some of the oldest data we have as far as carbon dioxide levels from Hawaii. And here we have high carbon dioxide levels in the winter. And if you remember, because in the winter the plants aren't doing photosynthesis, carbon dioxide levels go up. And then during the summer, when the plants are doing photosynthesis and using the carbon dioxide to make sugars, the carbon dioxide levels drop. But as a general trend, we have carbon dioxide going up. And that's happening around the world. All right, this ends part 3 of chapter 35 of your notes on plant anatomy.